Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here for another Monday This and That vlog where I talk about all kinds of different things, answering questions that have come in the past week, giving you updates on various things going on around here, and whatever I feel like talking about. So let's get to the topics of today, starting with when is the best time to harvest herbs. Now, normally I wouldn't do this video in the middle of February, but these questions are already coming in. Part of it is a result of the video that came out this last week on the benefits of echinacea. And so I had a lot of people asking me when is the best time to harvest leaves, and that was one of the reasons these questions started coming in. Well, around here, things are only just now starting to grow, which is actually still pretty early in the season, even for us, because it's the middle of February. But I want to show you, my rosemary is one thing that never actually stopped growing all winter long. We still have yet to get any snow this year. It is not uncommon in our area for us to never get snow through the winter, but it could still happen. It could happen anytime between now and the end of March, sometimes even early April, or we'll never get any. But as a result, rosemary is one of those things that's still growing. My marshmallow is starting to peek up out of the ground, little red shoots. Looks like my echinacea is starting to come up, and I notice I'm getting fresh new leaves on my mullein, which never fully died back over the winter. But the rosemary never stopped growing, and I think even though rosemary likes hot, dry climates rather than cool, wet climates like ours, because of where I have it planted, I think that's why. It's planted right up against the house on the south side, so it's going to stay the warmest and it's going to get the most sun. Even though we don't get very much sun, it's still, that's the place that's going to get the most sun when we do have it. So anyway, I just went ahead and cut some so I could just, use it as a visual aid. I will probably make an oxy mill out of this, or do like I did before where I did the wine and honey mixture to make an extract with the fresh rosemary. Really liked that. I still have some left. Super strong rosemary flavor, and it's a great natural antiviral, antibacterial, anti-this, anti-that. Rosemary's great. I love rosemary, which, by the way, if you're new to my channel, I have, ever since I started my channel, been doing videos where I talk about the uses and benefits. The echinacea one was actually a redo. So I've gone back to looking at some of the videos I did over 7 years ago, and I'm redoing a lot of those just to add more information and make them better quality, better sound, and so on. So I went ahead and harvested this because, yes, it is still coming in fresh. It's still growing as such, but I won't see any flowers develop on this until late spring or summer. And so the typical rule of thumb is you want to harvest, if you're harvesting leaves, you harvest them before the plant starts flowering. And echinacea is one of those. A mullein would be another one. Before it starts to get its flowers is the best time to harvest the leaves. So as soon as those leaves start coming on and taking on a decent amount of size, that is the time you start harvesting them. You don't want to over harvest because you need to leave some leaves to keep collecting the sun. That's very important. But once the flowers start coming on, most of the energy at that point goes into the flower, fruit, seeds that it needs to create so it can multiply itself. And so, though it will still put on some new leaves, they're going to be very small, and they're not going to have the same amount of potency to them as they do when they're coming in younger. If you watch any of your herbs while they're growing and you pay attention, you'll notice the difference that they're like echinacea leaves can get this big before it starts to flower, but once the flowers start coming on, any new leaves that come in are going to be like that big or smaller. And you'll see that with most plants, whether it be nettle, lamb's quarters, mullein. However, there are some that are the other way around, and I've learned this simply through observance. In fact, I was really excited the other day when I went outside, and I every now and then when I go out there to stick stuff in the mailbox to ship off, take a look at my little narrow strip of herb garden that is the same place where I grow my rosemary. I have several herb gardens, by the way. And I just kind of peek at it because that's what I can see as I'm going by, and I look at some of my other herbs and stuff that are going here and there. And I saw some dandelions starting to flower. And I was like, yay! already. I can't believe it, but yay. But I don't harvest them yet simply because there's only a couple. I like to give them time to really start putting on a lot of flowers. So I'm not going to do that quite yet. However, if you're paying attention to your dandelion plants or any other types of plants like that, you'll notice the flowers are really the first thing to start coming on. You might see some little tiny leaves forming, yes, but the flowers, all the energy when it first starts growing in the spring is going into the flowers. And so that is the best time to harvest your dandelion flowers. And then when the flowering, it starts to slow down, all of the energy goes into making the leaves, and it's very apparent because the leaves will get much bigger and fuller. And that is when I harvest the leaves when it comes to dandelions. So really, it's going to depend on the herb that you're growing. Standard rule of thumb is leaves first, then flowers, and then roots like in the fall. But it can vary from plant to plant. So it's a lot of this stuff you learn simply by observing what you're growing. But anyway, by the way, this smells so wonderful. I love the smell of rosemary. It's great. I want to touch real quickly on this again. So last week I was talking about the candle. Now, I did let that candle stay lit for several more days without turning it off. And it finally got to the point where it was so dim that in the middle of the night, if you went in there, because I unplugged my other light that I normally keep plugged in, so I could just see how well it would work, how long it would last. But several more days kept it running. And by that third or fourth night after I shot that video, it was to the point where it was so dim you could barely see anything. So at that point, I did go ahead and switch out the battery for a brand new battery that I bought in bulk. I'm doing another trial run on those batteries to see if there's any difference in how long they last. And so a few days ago, I put the new battery in early in the morning, and it has been running 24 hours consistently, just leaving it on. You would never need to leave a light like that on 24 hours at a time. You'd only need to turn it on at night, when it's dark, obviously. But again, this is a faster way for me to be able to assess the battery life, how long it's going to last. So probably next week I'll give you an update on that battery life, just to give you an idea. This is my experiment, so I can see just how many hours you can get out of a single battery. But either way, even if you only got 12, 24 hours out of one of these candles when you bought them, it's still gonna be far cheaper than buying wax votives. Far cheaper. But it does last much, much longer than a 12-hour votive. I can say that for sure. So, and then the other thing I wanted to bring up, if you would like to learn more about the different kinds of lights, because, there had some moron come in on Rumble and tell me I was some New World Order, whatever. I didn't even bother reading the rest of the comment because it was so dumb. Just because I'm using these little LED candles, but that's not all I use. That's just an example. And I do really like these when I don't want an open flame, such as when I'm running my oil lanterns, oil lamps, and wax candles, because we use all those and more. And I have several videos on this, but I'll link to the most recent one in the description box down below. And by the way, anyone who's all freaking out about things made in China, yes, I try to avoid that as much as I can, but it's almost impossible to find batteries or any kind of electronic that is made in the United States. That includes your flashlights, your smart devices, your computer, and so much more. So anyway, we all try to do the best we can to get US made products, but there's certain things, even a lot of your stainless steel products, you're not going to be able to find much made in the US anymore. It's sad, but that's just the way it is. And with that in mind, I want to bring up the fact that I did mention like how my LED lights right now, they're the string lights, they go all through my house. We use those all year round. Mostly that's what we use for lighting. And quite a bit of the year we can use those plugged into our solar power because they don't draw that much. So right now I do have these plugged into solar power, but you see right behind me, this is the first time in over a year that I've been able to pull out my hot plates and start running them off our solar power. So we have had solar power for I think around 12 years-ish. And we started small, we built upon it, we got a few batteries, we got a few solar panels, and then as money allowed us to, as we kept saving up, we just built upon our system and built it up from there. But We started off with golf cart batteries, which is a great place to start because you can get a pretty good price on golf cart batteries. But with the new batteries that have come out in the more recent years, they're just not as efficient. They don't last as long, and ours were getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and we had several that were just no good. And we had a company that contacted us and were wanting to work with us. They were going to comp us this whole set of batteries, and they're much better, longer lasting. They would be able to power our whole house all year round. Even here in rain country where sun is very, very scarce in the wintertime, we get very little collection, which is why you don't hear me talk much about using solar lights. Yes, that's a great option. I've mentioned it before, but solar lights that you let charge during the day and you bring in the middle of winter, those do us no good. If we have any sun at all, any light at all for them to charge, they might last an hour at most once they're brought into the house or once they're no longer getting that direct light on them. So that's why you won't hear me talk about those much. They're pretty pointless. I do have solar lights, and they're nice to have in the summertime when I need to go out and let the chickens out, close the chickens up, whatever it is I'm doing, I need to go out there and it's dark. And summertime's great because they'll stay lit all night. But middle of winter, when we need them most, no, they're no good. But anyway, back to the solar thing. So anyway, as such, because this whole setup needed a lot more space, we put a lot of time and money rebuilding our power room to hold all that. And the company had contacted us, says, hey, we're ready to bring all this stuff out to you. And we're like, oh man, we got to finish this room up. And we did a series of videos on Patrick making that room. I'll link to that series down below. And then pretty much all communication stopped once we got the room built, which was really a shame. Now, I'm not mentioning the name of the company because we're still hoping there's a small chance they will come through for us. But I say all that because all last summer, because we had no batteries hooked up, I was unable to use my hot plates because I don't keep fires going obviously in the summer months. It's too warm for that, for me to do any of my cooking and making coffee and tea on. So I rely then on the hot plates that we plug into our solar outlets that Patrick installed. And that has always been a great thing. But when that's not there, well, this is why I'm thankful we still have public power as well, because I was able to fall back on that. We got all these great solar panels collecting sunlight, but nothing to store them in. So we finally had to bring over from the other piece of property the batteries that we had bought. They were used. We got them secondhand, but they're great batteries. And Patrick can explain better what they are. We've got a video coming out on those. He had to bring all those over to the house. It was a big job, and get them hooked up. And he did that recently. So now we're able to really start using our solar power again, which has been a real blessing. I missed doing that last summer when we had all that power being collected, but nowhere to store it. It was such a shame. So anyway, we'll explain more about, if that company ever comes through, you'll see videos on that. And if they don't come through, you'll see videos on that. And either way, you'll know who they are. I'm just not ready to say who it is yet, because there's still that small chance that they'll come through, even though it's been 9 months. And the solar is a great thing to have, by the way. And I did do a video, I think last year, on 5 points to consider before you go solar, because it is a big expense. But you also got to realize you don't have to buy it all at once. But if you're thinking about it, you're mulling it over, please go watch that video. I'll link to it down below in the description box. Oh, and another thing, speaking of herbs, that you guys see my herb shelf back here all the time. And it's been back here for years. Patrick built it for me quite a few years ago because I was having more and more jars, and I wanted something pretty to set my herbs on so I could put more in there. But that's not all that I use for tea. I have a great amount of them. Some of them are spices that I keep stored in my spice cabinet over on this side. And by the way, if you're interested in a tour of my kitchen, the only thing it doesn't show is when we finish getting the paper, the border paper my son bought for me like 15 years ago or so. So that wasn't up when I shot that video, but I'll link to it down below as well. But anyway, I have a cabinet here that has all like my culinary herbs and spices, but also get used for teas. I've got a cabinet out here in the foyer on the other side of this wall It's a new cabinet where I've got a lot of the other herbs I use for teas and more ones that I'm currently working through. And then I have a bunch more that are long-term storage stored back in our pantry. So I have a lot, a lot. And this is just some of the ones I use the most. And you'll see I've got, and what I have is there's mullein, there's marshmallow root, that's from my own garden. Soon I'll be getting mullein from my own garden too, now that it's growing. Cinnamon sticks, that's Ceylon cinnamon. I have cat mint, because I don't have catnip, but I do have cat mint and I love it. Very good sedative. Let's see, peppermint, one of my favorites for teas. Usnea that we collect from our other piece of property. Astragalus root that I use for when I just want some immune boosting. Star anise, I love the flavor, and it is a great, I have videos on all these, by the way. It just makes for a great tea addition. And then I also have mojito mint. Mojito mint is one of my favorites to mix with catnip or cat mint when I'm using that. If I just need something more calming, I like mixing those two together. They make for a nice flavor and work very well for enhancing one's calm. So I just want to go over that real quick. But anyway, I love my little herb shelf, but that, again, is just a fraction of the herbs that I have and that I use. And then another thing I wanted to mention is you hear me talk a lot about Misfits Market, and you won't always find my link, because the one thing I don't like about Misfits Market is they only allow you to get so many referrals in a year. And then I'm like, oh, but I forgot when people go through that link, it gives them a little thing, even if I get nothing out of it. But my friend Annie, who lives locally, she's got her own farm. She's been building her Instagram page for her farm, and she gets Misfits Market. And so I asked her, hey, how about you give me your link, and I'll put your link in the description box for at least this video, if not more. So if anyone is interested in Misfits Market and you're not already signed up, please go through Annie's link. And that way she can get some benefit out of it, and you can too, because I don't get anything out of it if, once I get so many. And it's just like, it's still great. I still love it, but it's kind of, unlike Butcher Box, there's no limit. You can have a whole bunch of people keep signing up under you, and there's no limit. But Misfits Market does give us a limit when it comes to referrals. And by the way, anybody can, once you've got an account, you'll have your own referral link that you can share with friends and family. But anyway, yeah, that's where I get most of our organic produce that we buy, and a few other things. And then, Azure Standard, I also have been starting to get some of my produce from them. So far, just the garlic and the ginger are the only fresh things I've bought from Azure Standard, but I do definitely get a better price on their fresh ginger from Azure Standard. But Misfits Market is a pretty good deal all the way around. And, you just got to kind of always do your price comparisons on everything. I hope you enjoyed my this and that for the week. And don't forget to click on more or show more somewhere down here somewhere below the video screen to find any of the other video links and information I'll be putting down below, including Annie's Misfits Market link. And thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.